Hello everyone, so today we'd like to learn about how to create forms in HTML5. And forms are basically, for instance, perhaps you visit a certain clinic, you visit a certain bank, so they give you a form to fill your details, for example your name, right, your email, your banking details, etc. So it's a way of collecting data, right? But now those people, right, are collecting data physically using a physical copy or a physical paper. But now we are using digital way of collecting data from the users. So that's why forms are very important in HTML5. They give us the ability as developers to collect different type of data from the users depending on what data we want from the users. So this is what we're going to be learning today, and this is a bit advanced topic, but I will try my level best to dismantle or to break the concepts into smaller chunks so that you can understand. But I'm not going to overwhelm you. I'm just going to teach you the basics, right, so that you will be able to just produce forms, right, or create forms in HTML5. Then the advanced topic will come later. So now I've generated the HTML boilerplate, right, automatically, and here I've got two files that we're going to be using to create these forms, and you're going to see how we interact with forms in HTML5. And also we have form tags that we're going to be looking at, right, the form tag itself, which is the container. Then there are other tags that are actually put inside that container. We're going to be looking at the input, text area, label, select, etc. up to the buttons. We're going to see how to create buttons in HTML5. Perhaps you have visited a particular website and then you see the buttons, you're interacting with the buttons, you're interacting with the forms, you're filling your data, perhaps your username, your password. So today we're going to learn how to do that, how to create such forms yourself. Then we're going to be looking at form attributes, but today there are a lot of attributes that we can use, but today at this particular moment we just want to use only one attribute, which is action. Why? Because this is a basic way of understanding HTML5, because if I teach you many attributes, you're going to be confused. So we're going to just learn one attribute. Then from there we move on to what we call form controls. They control the type of a form we want, and this depends on the type of data we want to collect from the users. So now we're going to be using we're going to be looking at text, password, checkbox, submit, etc. So basically this is what we're going to be looking at, and from at the end of this lesson you're going to be able to create your own forms, your contact forms, etc., your surveying forms, which is fantastic. So I always mention that in order for you to understand HTML, because it's a markup language which is very understandable, but to understand it you just have to understand the tags and how they work and how to use them. So for now I have this. Let me write the So now let us see how to create these forms in a simpler way. Okay, let me expand my browser so that you can see these forms coming out. So as I mentioned, you have to understand the text. So we just have to write form, which is simple and straightforward. So you just have to write this opening tag form and closing tag form, and that is the container that contains the forms we're going to be writing depending on the type of data we want to collect from the users. So inside this, that's where we write the form tags, right? So this is the form tag as a container. Then inside this form container we write also other form tags that we want depending on the data we want. So for now let us start by writing the form that is going to collect only a text, right, a text from the users. Maybe it might be the name or the surname of the user. So what we have to write, we just have to write input, right? So just have to write input, and this is only the tag that actually self-close. It closes itself, right? So that's basically it. So that's how we write this input tag. So how do we specify that the type of data we want is a text? That's where we use this very, very important attribute, right? Type. So inside we write type, then inside these quotes we just write specify text. So the browser now knows that it's going to receive text as a form of data from the user, right? So if you see to my right, you see this is the form which is working. So I can type my name here, right? So that's it. So now we have our form. It's now working. The user can enter anything. Yeah. So basically that's how we create an input form, right, using this form tag input to collect text from the users. So perhaps we don't do okay. Let us create a sort of a login form. So now we just have to have another one. So in this case now we have to change the attribute because we need the password. Right. So if you see we have now, okay, let me put a break here. Right. So now we have we have two forms, right? We have two forms. The form for the username and the form for the password. But now the problem is that our form is not directing the users, or is not telling the users how or what type of data do you want from us. So what we do, we write a very important attribute that we have to put inside this input tag is called placeholder. So placeholder is just a text that shows the users the type of data which is required to be put inside this particular form. So that text goes inside this form, but when the user starts typing, that text disappears. So when the data is submitted, that text also reappear. So okay, for example, we need user. Okay, let me say enter user name. Right. So you see the text appeared inside this form, right? So we can do that here. Placeholder. We can say enter user password. Now the text appeared. So when the user now visits our website and see this form which is required to be filled, he sees this username and he sees this password. So the moment when that user sees this type of text, it becomes easier for this particular user to identify type of data which is required to be filled inside this particular form. So basically that's how we create forms and how we give users a hint on the type of the data which is required to be submitted. We use this placeholder text that goes inside this form, and it gives users a hint on how to put or how to write this data and which type of data to be filled inside these forms. So basically that's it. That's how we do this. So now we need a way to submit this particular data to the database, because we need to store this particular data so that we can be able to identify the users, for example, to see which user is logged in and which user is logged out. So we need a button that actually enables us to submit this type of data. But I didn't mention that this form container, right, has a default action. It has, right, it is designed to submit something somewhere, especially to the database. So whatever inside that, and when we click the button submit, whatever inside that container, that type of data or that information that the user has entered is going to be submitted somewhere inside a database. So now we need a way, right? We need to create what is called user experience. So we need a button so that the user can submit the data to the database. So let us create the button. So what we have to do, we have two ways to create a button, right? So the first way, you just have to write the input, right? So this input, we just have to specify which type of input do you want. It's a button, right? So now you see this particular thing right here, down here. So now is not visible. Why? Because we haven't put the value, which is the text that is going to be inside that particular button. So what we have to do, we have to just write it's going to be submit, right? Why? Because that button is going to submit our data. So if you look to my right, the browser is displayed that particular button we have created, which is fantastic and straightforward. Okay, so now let us put the break. Why? Because we need that to be down so that you can see this button clearly. So this is basically how we create a login form or a registration form. So basically, that's how we create forms in HTML5. Those forms you see when you visit a particular website or a particular web application, or even in Android application, you might have some forms inside that application for the users to fill some data, perhaps usually for authentication or to give access to different pages. So the user must put a username or password. So basically, that's how we create these forms in HTML5. So we have our button and we have our input fields. Sometimes I put fields because we have to fill something. So now let me comment that. So let me comment this and try to create other types of form tags that we have. So perhaps we need the radio buttons, right? So input. So now perhaps we don't want the user to type a text. We just wanted them to just check, right? Or to just to click a certain thing, and that thing is highlighted that the user has selected that particular item on the web page. So what you have to do, you have to just change the type of the input. So we just have to manipulate the type of the input. So now we are controlling that form, right? That's what we call form controls. So what we have to do, just have to say radio, right? So you see this dot, the second dot, right? So if you click it, right, it shows that it was clicked, and you see that the user has selected that particular item. So in order for us to see, perhaps we want the user to select a gender. So what we have to do, we have to use another tag which is very important, which is called label. All right. So this label labels our form so that the user can see what to select. What type of data do I need to select? So for now, we need to say perhaps male. We need the user to select male. So, and also let me copy this, right? So in this case, we have to write female. So now we have our gender. So we need the user to select his or her gender. So we have this, but now we have the problem, because if you select both genders, these circles are highlighted. So we don't want that. We need the user to select only one item. So what we have to do, we have to just put the name, right, attribute, and these names must be the same, right, for each and every radio button we put. So for example, just say me. All right, I can say, all right, let me just say gender. Then also we come here and specify name, gender, right? So these are genders, but we need only the user to select only one gender. So now if we come here and select, you see we're only selecting one gender. So we have the ability to tell the user to select only one gender. So that's how we create this type of form in HTML5, and this type of form is called radio button. Perhaps we want the user to select gender. So now we have other type, right, of we can call it checkbox. Perhaps you don't want that, we just need a checkbox, right, so that the user can just check, right, checkbox. So this is also another type of HTML form, right? It is called checkbox, and you usually get this from the perhaps you want to fill you want to check that perhaps you're installing a certain application, then it says check this. Why? Because you agree with the software policies. Then you just check and you go ahead. So this does not need this name because you're just checking everything, right? So so perhaps you're checking the things you want in a list. Perhaps this is a list. So for instance, this is a list of fruits, so we can say apples. Then here I need bananas, right? Perhaps we can put another one, maybe for oranges, right, or oranges. So this is a list of fruits, so I'm asked to select the fruits I want, so I can just check and check. So perhaps I need bananas and only oranges, so I've selected. So when you click the button submit, right, the button we've produced here, that type of data is going to be submitted, right, to the database. So basically that's how we create these types of forms in HTML5. Then I didn't explain, right? Okay, let me comment this, right, that one, and comment this login form we have just created. So this is the form we've created, and you can even put the label, right, label. So what we have to do, you have to type username, right? So then we come down here to another form, paste that guy, then we label it password. So we've labeled our form. Now the user, when the user visits our page, he or she sees this is the username, password, so I have to enter the username here, I have to enter the password here. So basically that's how we do it. Then I didn't talk about the password attribute, right, which is type of form control. So this password attribute, for example, if we just leave it as a text, okay, so if we leave it as a text like that, it becomes a problem. Why? Because this is a password and must not be seen by anybody else. So this causes some security issues. All right, for example, if I type here, then this is my password. If I type, okay, 1 2 3 4, this is my password, so it is visible to anyone. So this is insecure. So the HTML5 now, as a markup language, has provided us with a viable way of hiding our password. So what we have to do, we have to manipulate this type of the input. So we just have to type password. So once we have typed our password, you see our password is hidden, right? So that is secure. So we can type our password, okay, our name, like so, then we type our password 1 2 3 4. So now you don't see any the password is not visible to anybody else, so it's only me who knows my password. So basically that's how we do that, and it's simple and straightforward. So basically that's how we create forms in HTML5, which is simple and straightforward. Let me see if I've omitted something. Then there is another attribute, right, that we have to put here. Instead of creating the button using this way, we can also use another way of creating a button. We just have to write button. So HTML5 is very flexible. So you just have to write button, submit. Then now we have to specify the type, and the type is going to be submit. So the browser now knows what to do if this button is clicked. Obviously the form data needs to be submitted and stored somewhere inside a database. So that's another way of creating buttons, right, which is very important. Then we specify the type, which is submit button, which is submit, and the data, if is ready, then gets submitted to the database. So basically I think we've covered much, and that's it. Then I talked about the form tag attributes. This form is a container. It has a very important attribute that we have to look at, and that attribute is action, right? Action. So why do we need action? Perhaps if the button submit is clicked, we need to process the data. Perhaps usually we use PHP or other server-side language that actually communicates with a database. So what do we need? We need to send that form data to be processed, perhaps for validation and for authentication. Perhaps we want to give a feedback message for users to see that their data has been submitted. So we put the file where that process is written, or that script is written, or the message is written. So basically I've created the feedback HTML file, which is this one, and we're going to be directing the users to this file once the data is submitted. So what we have to do, we have to just write the path of that file, right? So for now we have feedback .html is the file where the feedback is written. So when once that data is submitted, then the users are directed to that particular file, right? So for now, let me enter my name, right? Then my password 1234. Then I submit the data. So now we've been redirected to this specific file, which is a feedback file that tells the users that your data has been submitted successfully. So this is a message: congratulations, you are now registered with us. So this is a very good user experience. So basically that's the purpose of using these action attributes. It directs the users to a specific file where they need to go, right, to see some information provided by the developers. So I think we've covered a lot concerning forms in HTML5, and this is a basic concept of HTML forms. Then for the advanced concepts, we're going to be looking at those later. For now, just master this and you are good to go creating different types of forms. So basically that's it. Thank you so much for watching.